Hi there, welcome to Money Tips again. Well, this week again, house prices are continuing to rise despite all the problems we're having with the economy, despite higher interest rates and all the things that are going on, all the political shenanigans that are going on. Property prices are still rising. According to the UK's biggest house mortgage lender, that's the Halifax, prices in June reached average house price in the UK 294,000, so it's getting near that 300,000 across the board, rose 1.8% in June. It's the steepest monthly increase actually since 2007, believe it or not. So it just defies belief that property prices can still be rising like that. Now what they're saying, it's due to a lack of affordable available properties in certain sectors, in larger properties, 3-4 bedroom houses with gardens, but despite, I mean, it says that, you know, over the year it's still rising by 13% on average. Now this is only the Halifax figures, it's not the official figures, but they are, you know, the biggest lender. So let's see what happens, but their own economists are saying that it does expect things to slow, as we're seeing petrol prices still going up. We're seeing fuel prices, which will expected to reach, the average fuel price for a household is expected to reach £3,000 plus by the autumn. So as these things hit people's pockets, and maybe that will slow the market down. Well, they're certainly expecting that they will see, because energy bills are going up by around 300%. Across the board, so it's bound to be hitting people. You know, when people are paying, say, £1,000 a year for their energy bill, you know, gas and electricity, and now it's £3,000. It's a huge jump, and that doesn't include what they're paying on extra for petrol and food and all the rest of it. So, you know, we're seeing a lot of changes. Incidentally, which area had the highest price rise? Northern Ireland. Again, that's an area where there's supposed to be all sorts of problems. They haven't even got a functioning government in Northern Ireland. They're supposed to be having all these Brexit problems, and yet house prices rose by 15% there to June, taking the average price of a house there to £187,000. I remember when you could buy houses in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, for £30,000, £30,000 or £40,000. Wales recorded a sharp growth as well, 14% to average of £219,000 in Wales. Scotland even rose by nearly 10%, breaking through the 200,000 barrier for the first time in its history. So it just defies belief. Now, interest rates will definitely rise again, according to the Bank of England's chief economist. This is to buck the rise in inflation, which is expected to reach 11%. And the Bank of England has warned that more interest rates rises are due, as it vows to bring inflation back down to 2%. Well, that's a bit ambitious. That's, you know, it's 5 times more than that right now, and they want to bring it down to 2%. Well, they're going to need to have some heavy interest rate rises to do that, right? And this is the Bank of England that said only about a year ago that, you know, inflation was temporary, it was transitory, it's not going to be a problem, it's going to come back down. Now they say they want to bring it down to 2%. That is ambitious. Their main, this is according to a guy called Hugh Pill, said in a speech on Wednesday that the main thing was to getting prices down, getting things back to a more affordable situation again, and just getting things back to a sort of a normal situation. But whether they can do that, I don't know. I mean, obviously we've got, in addition to all this, we've got the pound being weak, so that's putting up the prices of all of our imports as well. So let's see what happens. Now, Boris Johnson, if you've been watching any of the news in the UK, Boris Johnson has been ousted as the leader by his own party, by his own MPs. They've told him to go, and he's stepping down. This is before that a meeting that would have taken place early next week to officially remove him as the leader of the party and Prime Minister by what's called the 1922 committee, which is a committee of backbenchers that can actually vote to bring him down. And it's his own MPs then, and several resignations, over 50 resignations by junior ministers, that's actually forced him to go yesterday. So he hasn't stepped down as a Prime Minister, but he stepped down as leader of the party. So the way the system works here, the party, the Conservative Party, would have to elect a new leader, and then that leader would be then the Prime Minister. It sounds a bit weird because, you know, we voted for, or people think they voted for a Prime Minister, but in fact they've voted for their MP, and the number of MPs then make up the most MPs in the country, and then they can form a government. So the government is formed, and then you'd have the leader of the party stand as Prime Minister, but the party themselves can bring down that person, just like they brought down Margaret Thatcher and they brought down Theresa May and installed somebody else. It doesn't mean a general election, but with all this chaos going on, it could possibly force a general election. So a lot of people might say, well, what does it matter to me who's Prime Minister? In a way, that is true. You've got to get on with your own life, your own business, your own work, and not be distracted by all the political things that are going on. And that is true. Just look after your economy, your economy, rather than the economy, and that's the way I think you should generally run. But again, look at the overall situation, look at the economics of the situation. Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, this guy who's married to the daughter of an Indian billionaire, he has walked out of his job this past week, as did Sajid Javid, another minister, senior minister, and he will be replaced by someone called Naeem Zahawi. You may not have heard of him, but he was quite prominent during the vaccination stage of politics a couple of years ago. He became the vaccine minister, and he has now been appointed as the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, and he wants to rebuild the economy and get soaring inflation under control. Well, doesn't everybody? You know, of course you want to rebuild the economy and get inflation under control, but we could see a new approach from him. We could see more boosting economic growth and cutting taxes. As he said, nothing is off the table, he said. But so that's something that we could see a bit more tax cutting to boost inflation, and this is something that Rishi Sunak was criticised for not doing enough in his spring statement. There's also a raft of legislation going through Parliament, which, you know, if there was a change of government, could bite the dust. These include levelling up plans and property and tenants' rights. You know, we've written about this a lot. Section 21 going, no fault evictions, leasehold reforms as well, and also the way properties are advertised. That's all going through this levelling up process, and I will discuss more about this on my UK property talk show tomorrow at 10 AM. You can join me there live on Zoom, and I'll put a link up to that. I'll have a guest on tomorrow talking about these changes that are going through in property. In brief, estate agents are going to have to be a little bit less lazy about how they advertise a property and put more information up there, so that people understand what they're getting into. I mean, if you look at a leasehold property with a typical estate agent now, they'll just say leasehold. They won't tell you how long the lease is, or they might say long lease. They won't tell you what the service charges are. They won't tell you what the ground rent is, how often, and all these things. So that's going to be sorted out. Certainly on my agency, Open House, we try to be as transparent as possible and give all the information out, because how can somebody value a property without knowing the length of the lease and the service charges? Because clearly that affects the value of the property, and some agents don't even know the length of the lease, or I'll get back to you on that, or to be advised. So that's something that at my own estate agency, Open House South Herts, we do look at very carefully, because we want to be as open and transparent as possible. And what's the point of putting something up on a listing and somebody just asks you, well, how long is the lease? Then you have to tell them. You might as well put it up on the listing straight away. So I'll discuss this in more detail in my UK property talk, and I'll put a link up for that as well. Now, there's a pension scandal going on. Now, this is nothing to do with private pensions. This is to do with the government state pension scheme. It used to be called the old age pension scheme. Now, this scheme has gone through various transformations since it started, you know, 50, 60 years ago, just soon after the war, when they brought out this state pension provision, and this all cradle to grave care that people are supposed to have. So the idea is that you work all your life, you pay what's called national insurance, which is a tax, and then you get this pension to retire on. But this pension is not very much. It's a couple of £100 a week, if that, for most people. So don't expect to be living on this state pension. And people say, oh, I worked all my life and I paid all this money in, but how much money have they actually paid in? When you look at it, when they started work 40 years ago, say, that the contributions to this pension were hardly anything, a few pounds a week. And later you make more contributions, but then you're retiring on this amount of money. And if you actually work it out, if you lived 5-10 years, you probably spent all the money that you would have put into the scheme anyway, because the scheme is not invested, it's just a pay as you go. So the money that people are getting now as pensioners is paid for out of taxes that working people are paying now. There's no fund there with your name on it. But getting back to the main point is that it turns out that a lot of women in retirement have been underpaid on their state pension more than previously thought. Figures suggest that 237,000 state pensioners were paid less than their entitlement, and the payments amounts to like 1.5 billion. So the government needs to do something about that, and they are looking at it. But if you want to inquire about that, if you'd like to sort of get on board and say, look, what's happening with my provision, then get onto the DWP, Department of Work and Pensions website, and look at that, because it's now, I mean, 105,000 more people are affected by this scheme. So that includes any women, widows, divorcees in particular, that could be affected by these state pensions. But in reality, if you're young, I wouldn't rely on the state pension to look after you in retirement, because it's just not going to happen. They're already pushing back the retirement age. 66, it was 65 for people, now it's 66, 67 soon. The women used to be able to draw their pension at 60, now that's been moved up as well. So it's all going to be equalised, as they say. But you've got to really look after yourself. You've got to row your own boat, as I've often said, make investments. And I don't think pensions are necessarily the best way to invest, particularly the type of pensions that you're getting through companies now and through state provisions. They're just money purchase pension schemes. This is in addition to the state pension scheme. Your employer might be putting in a little bit for you, and you're putting in 2 or 3% of your salary. That's not going to be enough to retire on. So you've got to make other investments, or really top up your pension so that you're putting in 10-15% of your salary. Then it might amount to a fund that will give you a comfortable retirement. But what people are putting in now under the state provision and the compulsory work-based pensions is just not going to be enough. It's a drop in the ocean. And the type of funds that they're just in a money purchase fund. So it depends on the value of the fund at the end of your working life as to how much you're going to get. So if the fund managers have not done very well and the stock market or the stock market's dropped at that time, you could have a very different story. And I've said this to people who've got pension funds already. They should look at their pension funds, see if the investment decisions being made by the managers fits in with their own risk profile, and also look at the market now. The market is really at a high point, and if it drops tomorrow, if there's a stock market correction crash, as there has been in America already, you could see the value of your pension funds really be hit by this drop. It could go down 20, 30, 40% if the market was to go into a crash. So you've got to look at that, talk to your advisors and say, look, am I safe if there's a market correction? Could we park the money that's already there into a safer fund, in maybe to a bond fund, deposit fund, so that it protects the growth that you've accumulated already? So that's just a little tip there. But if you want to learn how to create more wealth, how to build wealth, and in other types of investments, particularly in property, then you can claim your free wealth discovery call with me by clicking on the link there, and I'll take you through a 30-minute wealth discovery call where we can look at your options and look at how you can build wealth and control your finances, and instead of just relying on the state or some employer pension scheme. Because unless you're in the government pension scheme, which is a guaranteed scheme, you're really not going to get much out of the normal work-based pension scheme. So thanks very much. If you want a wealth call, click on that. If you want to join me tomorrow for my UK property talk, we'll have a guest on. Click on the link and register, and then you can join me live on Zoom for that. So thanks very much. If you're watching this in the on YouTube or on Facebook, please click like and share, and get it out there to everyone. So thanks very much. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.